Yay Networks.
So food trends are really fun to think about, and it's fun to try to figure out where they come from and why and all of that. And ultimately, what it comes down to is picking something that works for you, picking something that works in your life, where you are right now, and what you're doing. And that to me is probably the best trend that we could adapt. Let's be honest and true to ourselves.
A quick note before we dive into today's podcast. If you like what you hear, I would love for you to subscribe to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition wherever you download your podcast. It would also be incredible if you take a minute to rate and review this podcast. Those things do matter and they really help us. I'm Molly Kimball. Welcome to Fueled, a wellness and nutrition podcast. I'm a registered dietitian and nutrition journalist with a passion to help people live their strongest, healthiest life possible. In my weekly TV segments and columns, there's a limited amount of time and space to cover everything, but there's so much more to share. This podcast is my opportunity to dive deeper into the topics you want to know about. Talking about what's trending is always fun. It's always just kind of a fun look ahead. And of course, nobody has a crystal ball to see just what's going to happen. But when you're talking about food trends especially, it's fun to kind of theorize and hypothesize about what we're going to be seeing on menus coming up and what's going to be showing up on store shelves and also just like what people are going to be talking about or wanting to prepare. And some of it may pan out, some of it may not, but I have with me food expert, ingredient expert, recipe expert, Ann Maloney. Ann is a friend of mine. She's also a colleague. I reported to her as my editor for years at the Times-Picayune here in New Orleans. And as Ann is going to be, you'll hear, she's just this, she has so much knowledge. She has so much insight. And for so many years, she served as just this guidepost for me. And as I would have ideas or, sort of think about, hey, what about this? Or let's talk about this idea, this topic, this thing food wise or nutrition wise. Ann is always that person who has her finger on the pulse, knows what is going to resonate with readers, knows what's important to readers, what's important to, and she, it's not just a, what's trending and what reads well, but she truly listens to the feedback. She reads the email, she hears the conversations. And so she really has a sense of what is important to us at any given moment. And so I've always turned to her for that guidance and, okay, I kind of have this idea. What avenue do you think is the best way to take it? So I thought when we're talking food trends, who better to join me than Ann? So a little bit about Ann. Ann Maloney is recipe editor for the Washington Post. She joined the Post in 2019. She moved there. She moved to DC from New Orleans, her hometown of New Orleans. She worked at the Times-Picayune for years. From 2016 to 2019, she was the food and dining writer. And as I mentioned, she was also my editor. She was arts and entertainment editor at the Times-Picayune from 2004 till 2015. And before she had returned back to New Orleans, she grew up in New Orleans, but she worked for the New York Times in various jobs since 1989. She spent a bunch of that time as features editor for the New York Times regional newspaper group in Manhattan. She is a past president of the Society for Features Journalism. She has a bachelor's degree from Loyola University here in New Orleans, a culinary arts diploma from the Institute of Culinary Education in New York City. So all of that combined with the fact that she's one of the loveliest humans I know, I am thrilled to have Ann join me to talk 2022 food trends. Ann, I'm so excited for us to be doing this podcast. It's so good to see your face.
Me too. Me too. It's really good to see you too. I miss you.
I miss you. So Ann is in DC, but of course, by the magic of FaceTime, I'm looking at you. And so through the years, something that you and I have always talked about is just this food trends. And it's fascinating to see what catches fire, what stays, what doesn't. And this is something that in your world, you're constantly dialed into this.
Absolutely. And it's impossible to really know what will trend in the year to come. But you do get some inklings from a lot of different sources, from readers, from some, you'll see recurring questions sometimes from readers, and then things just bubble up. catch on and catch fire. I mean, you just never know what it's going to be. TikTok pasta is a good example. Super simple recipe, but just went crazy, and everyone I know, literally almost all of the people who cook made it at least once just to try it.
Tell me
So
about TikTok pasta.
TikTok pasta was it was a recipe that was on TikTok, and our Aaron Hutcherson, who is one of our writers, decided to make it because it was trending. It had gone viral, and it's a very simple. It's a very simple dish. It is basically pasta with I guess cherry tomatoes, and you basically just bake it all together, and it's really simple and and got a lot of fat in it from the feta, which is nice, and it's very comforting and easy to make. And I think that's one of the things that I think will continue to trend in this year to come, is things that are simple to make and comforting, and make you feel like you get the sense of accomplishment of having made something, but you're not spending hours in the kitchen, and it's delicious. And I think that's what struck a chord with people with this.
Is it like it looked like something that was maybe a restaurant quality dish, and it made people feel like they were being very successful in the kitchen without having to have like this high level of skill?
No, I think it was just yummy.
You're like, it's not any of that.
I don't think it is.
Don't overthink it.
No, don't. It's when it's all mixed up together, the pasta and the tomato and everything all coats the feta and the tomato coats the pasta, and it's just really nice. And then you sprinkle a little fresh basil on it if you want. But I think it was just yummy, and but again, it's really hard to say because I see lots of really yummy things that don't catch on like this.
Right.
And I don't know how the collective psyche gravitates towards something and just decides that's what it's going to do. But this was one of them. It's one of, I mean, we do on the website, we look at stories that are doing well with readers, and it is always on the list, even though he wrote about it, like Aaron wrote about it, like in February.
Yeah.
Of one.
Yeah.
And it still pops up on the list of most read stories on the site.
That's hilarious.
I really couldn't have predicted that.
Yeah.
But it is yummy.
So
it's
that
good.
was a good 2021 example. You've got like maybe 6 or 7 that you had already shared with me that we'll kind of talk through now on for what's looking ahead. And like you said, there's no way, like we don't have that crystal ball. We don't know exactly in the future what's going to trend. But I feel the same way as you. It's that if I get one question about it, sometimes I just think, and depending on what the topic is, sometimes you just think, well, that's odd. When you think, I wonder where that's kind of from left field. And then you get it again and again, and you're like, oh, maybe that person's, that wasn't such a bizarre question. They're hearing it somewhere, it's buzzing somewhere. And it's just in those circles. It's in the like, oh, by the way, kind of like conversations that people are just having wherever they are in their life. Like I'll have things that, people bring that maybe the person who does their hair is passing along, or they get this tattered, copy of something that or like a screenshotted thing that's been screenshotted and passed along so much. It can be from anywhere. So with that, what are some of the things that you're seeing that you think are coming up that we'll be seeing more of?
I think one of the things that is already going on, but I find is even becoming more and more and more mainstream, is plant-based eating. That when I was growing up, being a vegetarian was something that was very odd, and something hippies did, and it was very odd, and I'm going to be 60 this year, so that does date me, I know. And I know plant-based eating has been growing in popularity, but I find it's sort of gone beyond a health consideration, and even beyond a climate change situation, where people really enjoy it. They're sort of understanding by embracing it and trying things. They are actually starting to understand how delicious vegetables and fruit and everything can be. And today, for example, my the food editor, Joe Yonan, one of the things we took a picture of was his a dish that he made, which is it's a buffalo chickpea nacho. So it's like buffalo sauce with chickpeas on on corn chips. And when he first said it to me, I'm still cocking my eyebrow, I think. But I tasted it today, and we put it in the oven. As it's heating up, it smells just perfect, just like nachos. And then we all tasted it, and it was delicious, absolutely delicious. If I served it to you, you wouldn't know it had vegan cheese on it. You wouldn't know. You wouldn't think about it. You would
Did it
just
have
say,
the chickpeas that were like visible, or the chickpeas were used to make the cheese?
No, chickpeas, visible
Okay.
chickpeas cooked with like I have to pull the recipe up real quick to see it, but the when you look at it, you can see the chickpeas and the tomato on top, and they had Frank's hot sauce on it. And then he took and tested a whole bunch of vegan cheeses, because one of the problems with vegan cheeses is they don't melt.
Right.
So
They're
when you
usually
do
pretty
something,
poor.
so he found a brand that he liked, which I'd have to look up to find out what it was, but I can get you that.
Yes.
But he tested a whole bunch of them and found one that would melt and put it together. But the point was, we were all chowing down on those nachos just like we would any other nachos. And I think that's something that is going to continue to grow. And they call it reductarianism or reductarianism. People pronounce it different ways, but it's just this practice of eating less meat and less dairy, and fewer eggs and that kind of thing. But you can do it at your pace. You don't have to become a vegetarian or become a vegan. You can just say, I'm going to eat more plants. I'm going to eat, I'm going to make meat more of a condiment on my plate rather than make it the center of the plate. And it's just something that's really, I find more and more people. And then you have all these brands coming out. So once you see like major food producers going in this direction, you know that it's mainstream.
You're
And
right.
I think in the year to come, it's going to continue. I don't see any way that will lessen. It's just going to get more and more.
I feel like it started as, like you said, decades ago. It was certainly not the norm. And then the two kind of elements that boosted it, one was the wellness side, people looking at a vegan specifically lifestyle to reverse cardiovascular disease, help with inflammation, et cetera. And then also, as you said, sustainability and being better for the planet. But beyond that now, so there was the health, there was the wellness, there was the planet concerns and the
Right.
environmental concerns. And then so many chefs are catapulting it. The Culinary Institute of America, this is something that is a huge push for them, is plant-based and plant focused on the plate. And so when chefs are, different culinary schools that we're working with, this is part of what, many times the chef educators, the chef instructors, they'll come to us especially in our local culinary programs as dietitians and say, hey, with our Eat Fit team, how can we learn more about these types of foods that we're teaching to our students? And so it's coming from organizations like the Culinary Institute of America. It's coming from these culinary schools on a local level, that this is what new chefs are getting trained for. And it's all of that, I think, is helping it become mainstream.
To piggyback on that just a little bit, there's, along with health, and there is the impact on the planet. And we're getting information about things that we never got before, about the impact of cattle and so forth. When we were growing up, we didn't hear about those things, and we're getting more and more information, and it's coming to us through social media,
Right.
and through the newspapers and so forth. And I think more and more people are just exposed to it, and it's really a great thing to see people doing. It's not, and I love a cheeseburger. Don't get me wrong. I'm carnivore and I love a cheeseburger, but find myself doing the same thing, and that's why I like this attitude of just no rules, no hard
Label.
and fast rules. I'll never do this again. Maybe I'll get to that point one day. But right now, what it is about is just eating a little bit more healthy, and doing a little better for the planet, um, and taking it at my pace,
I
which
think
is great.
brands, like you said, that are coming out with more and more plant-based foods, many times these are completely vegan, but they are avoiding using the term vegan across the front of that package so that someone doesn't feel kind of hemmed in or labeled as that. So plant-based or plant-forward. I think one of the things that I thought was interesting, I had interviewed an expert on gut microbiome. And of course, we know that one of the best things we can do for a healthy gut microbiome, which is key for our immune system, for everything from our weight to our immune system to our mood and everything else. Like basically, the gut kind of controls everything. We realize, like, if there's anything wrong with you, you can probably trace it back to our gut microbiome.
Mm,
I mean, not really, but like almost.
right.
But one of the ways that he puts it, and he is British, so he says it, and he says plants, really cool. Like we say plants, and of course he says plants,
Right.
to aim for, at least, 20, 25, 30 different plants a day. And when you think about that, the dish that you just talked about, the chickpea vegan nachos, there's, it's got chickpeas, it had tomatoes, it had corn in there. There's all these different things that
Right.
in a dish you might easily have 3, 4, 5 different plants in there. And so that can kind of be a fun challenge to aim for, see how much you're typically eating in a day and see how can I add that by a couple each day or each week.
Right. Yeah. And I'm doing it more in my own column, in my dinner in minutes column, and it comes up. We do a weekly chat on Wednesdays at noon. It's a thing where you can submit questions and we answer them, and we get a lot of questions about based eating in there. I'm just seeing it really. That I really think that's one that's going to stay with us, and I think it's a good thing too. I'm excited about it.
And if you can send me the vegan cheese, because I know anyone listening who's struggled with yes. So we'll put that in the episode notes.
I will absolutely.
It's okay.
I'll track him and get that because I know everybody's going to want it.
Because that's
taking pictures of all you testing.
Yes, it's a barrier.
But I enjoyed that.
Let's take a minute to talk about NutriSense, sponsor of this week's episode. NutriSense offers continuous glucose monitoring. They call it CGM, and it's just so cool, y'all. It allows us to track in real time just how our blood glucose levels respond to what we eat, our physical activity, our sleep, even our levels of stress. And knowing how our body uniquely responds to these internal and external factors, it's absolutely fascinating. And it helps to guide us in knowing just which lifestyle changes can be most impactful to help us reach those wellness goals. The continuous glucose monitor is a sensor. It actually goes onto our arm. The sensor lasts about 14 days, and each subscription plan includes 1 month of free one-on-one support from a registered dietitian. NutriSense's CGM program also includes an app. It's a really elaborate app to help you track your data, help to understand your glucose trends, and to see how what you eat, how you move, how you sleep, how all of this impacts your glucose levels. Putting on the CGM sensor is painless. For me, it feels even less than what a finger stick might feel like that you might have done in the past. So head over to nutrisense.io/fueled. That's NutriSense.io/fueled. Use promo code FUELED for $30 off any NutriSense CGM subscription. That's nutrisense.io/fueled, promo code FUELED. So plant-based eating, and that kind of, transitions well into the next one that you see as the ongoing and just getting bigger trend is going green, period, in the kitchen.
Yeah. There are so many small things that you could do. And I've, if you walk through the grocery store, well, during the pandemic and even before that, we started bringing our grocery bags to the store. So we have there are just a million little things you can do. And so we did a section on it, I guess, last spring on this topic. And it really got me thinking about it. And the reaction we got to it was really great from people. Lots of really great suggestions from readers as well as taking our suggestions. And it's little things like I am still struggling with some of it because I have habits, and just like all of your listeners have habits, and habits are hard to break. But for example, paper towel. I've never been a person who dried her hands on paper towel. Just, I never did that. But I used them in my kitchen all the time and thought that they were essential to certain
Right.
tasks. Like, you can't do that with a towel. Why can't you do it with a cloth towel? If you can do it with a paper towel, you can do it with a cloth
Like
towel.
pressing the liquid out of like the spinach or something.
Yeah, why not? And people get upset because their kitchen towels get stained, and I'm like, it's okay. It's all right if your kitchen towel isn't white and pristine or whatever color. It's
You're not
perfectly
wearing
okay.
it, right?
No,
This is what it's
and as
for.
long as it's clean, you can clean it.
Yeah.
And so I've been. One of the things I did was I took the paper towel from the top of it was over my sink.
Yeah.
Just there all the time, ready for me. And I took it down from there. And I said, well, it's not going to be there anymore. I'm going to have to go and get it when I want it. And I bought more really inexpensive kitchen towels, which my colleague, Becky Crystal, that was what she did. And you can get really nice, thin, cheap towels. It's cheaper probably in the long run.
Yeah.
I haven't done a study on it, but it probably
yeah.
And the only thing I haven't been able to do is some people actually use paper towels for draining fried foods and things like that, and I haven't done that yet.
You mean cloth towels?
It's something about cloth towels. Yes, there's something about the grease and the towel that I haven't come to terms with, but I will eventually. So I'm better at it, and I think that that's something that you're going to see a lot more of. You see stashers, those resealable,
right.
reusable,
like a Ziploc, a zip top.
Yeah, they're hardier and they last longer, and you can wash them in the dishwasher. So, using all of your takeout containers as storage for your food, using glass jars as storage for your food, that kind of thing, and then doing things like when you're boiling water, really simple things like when you're boiling water, put a lid on the pot, so it'll boil faster. You can try to, if you can't get rid of Ziploc bags, try to use them 2 and 3 and 4 times and wash them. If you can't stop yourself from getting them.
Right. That's some of the things that we do, because there are some things like straws is one, and straws is such a hot button conversation at times. And there's reusable straws. There's the rubber type, kind of silicone. There's the metal ones. There's paper ones, which I really don't like the paper ones. They kind of stick to your lips, and then the metal ones, I'm like afraid I'm going to like break a tooth, and then the silicone ones, while I know you can wash them and keep them clean, there's just, for me, having the regular straw does feel more like we do this balance. You've probably seen it, or I've talked to you about it before. It's that fresh pressed juice blend. It's from the juice bar here, and it's beet juice. It's kale. It's spinach. It's just this earthy. It looks like pond scum across the top of it. It's thick. It's murky. It doesn't taste particularly good, but it is like literally 5 pounds of vegetables in this 16-ounce juice, fresh vegetable juice. And Brad and I split it each day. We have it, about half and half each, 8 ounces each. It's not something I want to sip and savor. I want to drink it with a straw. I want to just get it down fast.
Right.
So the straw works there. So what we do, we use recycled straws. We buy the recycled, compostable straws, and we rinse and reuse it and reuse it and reuse it until it splits and it doesn't work anymore. So while we are, and nobody send hate mail about this, but so we're buying the recycled compostable straws and using them as often as possible. And obviously we're husband and wife, we share the straws, so right. We're limiting that. And the same thing for the zip top bags. There's certain things that it just is convenient if you're traveling or something like that. And we are just absolutely in the habit of saving, reusing those repeatedly, when we have them. And then we do have the ones that you're talking about that you can rinse out, wash, and reuse. But depending on how compact you might need it to be or whatever, sometimes that plastic does work. And so it is thinking through, not just, it doesn't always have to be the all or nothing, kind of like we were talking about with plant-based eating, but thinking about what are we doing and how can we reduce some of that exposure.
And I think that's something that's going to continue to grow as and become more. I feel like in 2022, it's going to become less of a what am I trying to say? It's going to become more of a natural thing that people are doing.
Right.
Less of a like a huge effort. Like I
Right.
can already feel it in myself, and that's at least that's a trend I'm hoping will continue, and I think that it will. And there's just so many little things you can do. If you're rinsing rice, you can save the rice water and water your plants. There's just so many little things you can do. You can also drive yourself insane trying to do everything perfectly right all the time, and that is just not possible. And well, I guess it's possible for some people, but it takes a while to change your habits. And I think that what we tried to do with what we were writing, and what I'm hearing from experts too, is just take steps. Take steps in anything in your life that you're trying to improve or change. You take a step. You take a step forward, and you know, uh, just like with the paper towels, I use a heck of a lot fewer, but I haven't made the break yet.
One thing
So
that I've seen kind of on this topic is, as you know, if someone's making a nutritional change, one thing that we might recommend is keep a food log for a couple of days or a week or so that you can see what's going on, and you can see maybe where some of those weak spots are nutritionally. Well, just like this, if there's certain things that you're using, whether it's packaging or wraps and things like this, or bottles, water bottles, keep a log, like maybe, and it's specifically plastics. How many times are you using plastic for whatever it is? And then keep a log for a day or two or three. And then you can start to see where you're really turning to this, and then put your efforts there first. So for me, something like water bottles can be a really big step, a really big change. And using reusable bottles is huge. There's so many really cool glass ones, but I'm such a dropper and a spiller. I have picked up more broken glass. So I've
really,
gone, oh gosh, yes, in many, many places. In fact, Brad said, how many times have you dropped glass in our driveway? He said, it's as if the car's gotten broken into multiple times, and I'll think I'm picking up all the shards. But so I go to the stainless steel reusables. So it's finding what works for you.
yeah, I don't buy bottled water anymore at all. I would say it might happen if I'm out hiking or something and I'm in a situation where
Right.
I just have to have water and that's what's available. But that is something I have stopped doing. I
Yeah.
just can't do that anymore. So we have a
Yeah.
filter in our refrigerator, and I drink tap water.
Yeah.
I figure I'm fine with it, and I use the reusable. So that is one thing I have done, because that is just, when you see that in your trash, when you see that, there's just no denying
No.
and it's not necessary.
And how quickly it fills it up. I think, like you said, though, you can drive yourself crazy if you try to immediately take it to a level of perfectionism. You can drive other people crazy. So I'd encourage our listeners, there's no judgment here with
Mhm.
yourself, and not taking the judgment of this conversation to other people. So if you see me and I happen to have a plastic Topo Chico bottle, which maybe I will, there's no finger wagging to anybody. It's just assessing it yourself and seeing where do you have that room for improvement within yourself.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, so what's some of our other trends that you're seeing coming up
Well,
down the pike?
one of the things that and I can't quite figure this one out. I don't know if it's a marketing thing or what's going on. Everyone is talking about mushrooms these days. Mushrooms, mushrooms. And I think part of that may be that, mushrooms have that sort of meaty quality to them. There's so many ways that you can use them and cook them to get the water out of them and change the texture of them. My boss did a pulled oyster mushroom, like a sort of like pulled pork, but the same
Yes.
as pulled pork. But he
Yes.
did pulled oyster mushrooms, and I'm telling you, it was absolutely delicious. And if I had put it on a bun and served it to you, you it, I'm not sure you would have known. And I think part of what happens. With that sort of plant-based eating is when you season and spice and cook things in a similar way, you could get a lot of the same quality. But mushrooms are kind of really going crazy right now.
At the farmers market, we see the mushroom farmers specifically, and I'm blanking on the name of the one here in New Orleans. It's at the Crescent City Farmers Market, but he was having a hard time. He worked in the restaurant. He was having a hard time sourcing the types of mushrooms that he wanted. And so he decided to start farming them himself. And it's all different types, you know, like you said, the oyster mushrooms, but all different types. They look like, many of them look like these really beautiful, like coral or creatures from the sea, you know,
Absolutely.
they're just so beautiful. And some of them you can, you know, lightly toss with oil, kind of spread them out on a baking sheet, and they get like really crispy like a chip. And you can do that at home in your own oven. And so you've got something that kind of gives you that crispy chip like texture. There's brands that make bacon that's in, I'm air quoting bacon, but it'll be almost like bacon bits or bacon pieces, but it's mushrooms that are kind of dried and essenced too, where it's like a bacon kind of replacer. And then, like we were talking a bit earlier about plant based eating, the texture of mushrooms, like you were saying, it's so meaty that you can easily dice mushrooms and just regular mushrooms. You can dice them and use that half and half with ground beef or turkey or whatever, or even in place of it. And it's going to give that texture of meat. So there's a bunch of, I think they're very like versatile and like the different types of textures and qualities they can give us.
And it's something that a lot of people think they don't like, and I never like to talk about people as though they're like don't know their own minds. I think I didn't like mushrooms, and then I started cooking them in various ways and really discovered just how amazing and delicious they could be. You know, like you're talking about putting them in a pan and cooking them until the water is out of them. They start to turn golden, and then tossing them in like a lovely little chili sauce and putting that over rice or putting that over some other grain. My colleague Becky Crystal made mushroom Rubens, and they were really good. She took
Wow.
like portobello mushrooms and smashed them down and cooked the moisture out of them, and then she took the similar seasonings that you would use for like a corned beef or that kind of thing.
Right.
Spread that on the mushrooms and then cooked them until they got a little crisp, and then she dressed them like you would a Reuben, and they were scrumptious.
So literally making like her own mushroom pastrami.
Right. Like she just figured out the flavor profile that she
Wow.
wanted. And think about the other ways that you could do that. What sandwiches that you like that you could, because really what you like most of the time, not all the time, not all the time. I mean, I like the flavor of a burger, a real burger, beef burger, but sometimes the flavors that you're getting from food are from the seasonings and from what you're
The texture.
you're putting on it.
Right.
And but it's just interesting to me. Like I've been reading studies about like 4 in 10 shoppers say they've bought fresh mushrooms in the past year, and it's up from you know from last year. And I just don't know. I am seeing more variety of mushrooms
Yeah.
in stores. And of course, farmers markets are amazing if you happen to hit one where you find a mushroom farmer, because they're
Right.
mushrooms I've never heard of before or seen in my life. But just in the regular grocery store, in the Safeway, and I'm seeing more variety than I used to. You always saw the little button mushroom. You'd see a shiitake, but you're seeing oyster mushrooms, and you're seeing those big meaty portobellos and things like that. So it's definitely something I think is gaining in popularity, and I don't know if it's the mushroom farmers of America,
Right.
or if there is such a thing. But
Are we being told they're becoming more popular? And then so we think they are, but yeah.
I
Yeah.
see it myself too.
Yes.
And
Yes.
also when we write, and we can see it because we can see the readership when we write about them.
Right.
We can see that readers are interested, and we try to give them what they want.
The umami flavor that you get from mushrooms, that's sort of that earthiness, that kind of, there's sweet, sour, bitter,
Right.
salty. And umami is that other one that sort of, you can't
Right.
put your finger on it, but you're like, man, what is this? What is it about this that kind of gives it this essence, this depth to it? And mushrooms are really good at providing that. And we found in our cafe, at Oshner Fitness Center, we work with our cafe, and we're always kind of playing around with new recipes and new ways to make eat fit dishes kind of in-house that we're selling. And there's several different, whether it's soups or glazes, balsamic glazes, that when we taste it, it tastes good, but it maybe is a little one dimensional. And then we'll add pureed mushrooms to something that doesn't, you don't normally, it wouldn't normally have mushrooms associated with it. Let's
Right.
puree some mushrooms. Let's put that in there, and it just adds that extra layer of depth to the flavors there. But it's still so neutral. You're not changing the end result of whatever you have.
Right. Right. I just made a. Do you know who Michelle Tam is? She writes the Num Nom cookbooks. She's paleo. She did a no fish sauce. You know, fish sauce that she
Yes.
uses, and she did a no fish sauce, which she makes with a little seaweed and dried shiitake mushrooms. And I just made it this week, and it's really good. And I can see using it in place of soy,
Yes.
place of fish sauce, and it's like you say, it adds some depth of flavor without changing what you're making,
Right.
and you're still tasting the other things, but it's a chemical reaction. I guess it works really well. So
I'm going to try that no fish sauce because that's something that as we play around with our Eat Fit restaurants, with our cafe, it is a challenge to get those flavors without getting the sodium. So I'm going to take a look for that and see. We were actually just having that conversation about making kind of a general show. How do you say it?
I say so, but I don't
Okay.
know if I'm.
Well, you know who we're talking about. His sauce without so much of the soy sauce, and kind of how do we make a lower sodium version of that and still have the flavor. So I'm definitely going to check that out. Let's take a minute to talk about Shirley, one of our sponsors for this week's episode. Y'all have heard me talk about our annual Alcohol Free for 40 event, which has been just incredibly eye opening when it comes to our relationships with alcohol. And I love that there's so many mindful drinking support systems these days, from Dry January to Sober October, and so many zero proof alternatives out there like Shirley. The team behind Shirley spent nearly a year working with the finest winemakers in California to create a line of non alcoholic wines that also don't compromise on taste. We know that going alcohol free is tremendous for our mind and our body. Enhanced mental clarity, better sleep, solid energy, less anxiety, less moodiness. So elevate your potential. Consider taking the time to reevaluate your relationship with alcohol, and it doesn't have to be complicated. The key is finding replacement behaviors that can work for you, like meeting friends for a walk and talk instead of drinks, or swapping your evening glass of wine for Shirley. Try it for yourself. Head to highshirley.com. That's HISURELY.com. Use promo code FUELED for 20% off your first order. For Dry January, alcohol free for 40 and beyond, there's no better time to try Shirley. So we've got plant-based eating, we've got mushrooms specifically kind of in that, going green in the kitchen without driving yourself crazy or others crazy while you're doing it, but kind of looking at all these little steps that we can do that just start layering in those, better for the planet behaviors. And then drinks. Tell me what you're seeing on drinks.
Well, the low alcohol and no alcohol drinks are really taking off, and you know, they were popular, in January.
Right.
Everybody was,
For the first
everybody was,
week.
yeah, the first week of January. But now you're seeing them really, really, really take off, and people who you would not have thought would be into low alcohol cocktails, are becoming proponents of them. And there's a new book out by Derek Brown. It's called Mindful Mixology: A Comprehensive Guide to No and Low Alcohol Cocktails. And this is a man who actually once wrote an essay, in defense of binge drinking. So you
Wow.
he's a bartender, and obviously more than a bartender. But um, he I love what he said, because I'm just going to say this one little quote that he said. He said, "I want to normalize drinking sophisticated adult drinks without alcohol, and that means avoiding um, ridiculous or confusing names." So to him, they're just cocktails.
Mm-hmm.
They're just cocktails. They're like any other cocktail, and just because they don't knock you on your fanny, doesn't mean that it's not a cocktail. And he's using all sorts of um, syrups and herbs and tinctures and infusions and things, but he keeps it pretty simple. It's like something I can do. When you hear infusion, you think, oh my gosh,
Yes.
I can't do that. All that means is putting something in liquid and letting it capture
Letting
some of
it
the
sit.
flavor of the thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
walk
steeping.
away.
It's basically what it is. It's
Yeah.
like making tea almost. So I there's a real movement toward that, and that again is a beyond the thing of people just for health. Um, there's mental health associated with it as well, and peace of mind. And I know you have done the alcohol free for 40 for how many years now?
Gosh, and when we first did it, our first year, so for our listeners, y'all have heard us talk about alcohol free for 40, which we're about to ramp up for again after Mardi Gras this year. Ann worked with me to really kick it off, even our very first year. So 2016 was our first year. Yeah.
So
And you've seen the feedback from people and just the lives changed from it. It's just incredible.
it's profound. And it's just like with it's like with anything that's an indulgence, it's fine, it's fine to indulge in it occasionally, but it's when it becomes a habit, it becomes something in your life that you no longer feel good about. And that's what I like about this. And I like the fact that what I really like about this trend and going into 2022 is seeing this really taking a hold in the cocktail community.
Right.
For him to write this book is a big deal, and for restaurants and bars to offer low alcohol cocktails to people is a big deal, because once again we're getting beyond somebody's New Year's resolution that they may or may not keep, or someone doing something because they realize they have a problem. It's about just changing. It's like just like with cigarettes, it's about changing our perception of something and making change as a society. And those things take a really long time.
It takes a really long time. It is. It's as we were talking about with the plant-based eating, it's a similar culture shift where we see chefs, we see, the culinary training spaces bringing this in and teaching these strategies for plant-based eating to new chefs. Similar with that, with Derek Brown, with other bartenders, mixologists, who, as he said, normalizing drinking a drink that may be low alcohol or no alcohol, and not having to call it a mocktail or resort to a sugary kind of less than substitute. So I think it's when it reaches that level where the people who are forming the backbone of that industry are pushing down these options as very ordinary. They're just part of it. And you're not having to be that person or take that special step out to make a different choice.
Right. And so I think that is going to continue. I see no reason for that not to be something that grows and grows and grows. Yeah. And I think also as people get older and have children and settle into their lives and their careers, I think it becomes, you don't want to miss out on the social aspects of going out and doing those things, but being able to have these options and being able to sip something that actually tastes good, right, and that is delicious and it is pretty and looks nice in the bar light and everything is just terrific. And I see this continuing for sure. I think so.
One of the things that we have coming out later this year, October of this year, is a new book, and it's called Craft. It's the Eat Fit Guide to Zero Proof Cocktails. And we worked with Ethan Skaggs, who's here in New Orleans, who is really well versed in, like you were saying, the different tinctures, the different infusions, but making it approachable. And so we took some of the most spectacular cocktails at our Eat Fit restaurants, but they may be filled with sugar. They may have, most of them did contain alcohol. And then Ethan reworked them. How can we take this concept, this beautiful drink and these flavors and rework it so that it doesn't have the sugar? It's made with an Eat Fit simple syrup, or it's made with these other botanicals, these essences, or these zero proof spirits. And so we do call them zero proof cocktails, but we have really tried to not reprimand, it's too strong of a word, but when we do have our Eat Fit partners or our restaurants or the community talking about mocktails, we're quick to say, kind of in a fun way. Oh, like the cool kids call it zero proof cocktails now because it just sounds so much less like a not so ideal substitute. A mocktail sounds like you're having something that's not the real thing. Yeah. So,
Right.
so loving that trend. And then the next that you were talking about to me was, travel is a little bit limited now for some people. And, it may be by choice that travel's limited. It may be by necessity, but trying to get our dose kind of satisfy the exposure that we normally would have for travel, getting that through our food instead.
Yeah, we one of the things that we're seeing is that people seem to be more interested in exploring other cultures through food. So that might be Indian food, it might be Mediterranean, it might be Asia, some Asian food, Korean food. And I had a woman write to me and say, I know what to do with feta and basil and these certain things that go together. But she said when it comes to other cultures, I don't know. And she says by exploring and just trying different recipes and getting some of the basic building blocks of other cultures recipes, she was able to grow, as a cook. And but it's more than that. It's like, if you can't, I'm not saying that if you fix yourself a lovely plate of fettuccine that you're going to feel like you went to Italy, but you can you can take a little mental vacation that way. You can create something that takes you to another place or reminds you of a trip that you took. And we're seeing a little bit of that in some of the things that are growing in popularity, that like hibiscus.
Hibiscus, as we were just talking about with zero proof cocktails, hibiscus is, I mean, kombucha's one, but hibiscus tea, that is hands down one of the most versatile ways to make a zero proof cocktail beautiful, flavorful. Oh my gosh.
I love it. I love it, and people do love it. And turmeric, and
Mm-hmm.
people are eating more. I'm very late to this, but I discovered the Korean condiment gochujang,
Yes.
and I just went crazy for it. And then I started. That was like my sort of gateway into Korean food, and then I started just digging in more and more. I know I would love to go, and I'd love to see that place. It's going
Yes.
to be amazing. Um, but it is a way to just sort of break. Maybe you can't take a vacation, maybe you don't feel comfortable traveling, maybe your health is compromised with some way and you feel like because of COVID you don't want to have that exposure, but it's a way to take a break from your everyday life and get a little fresh experience, get a new experience, and expand your horizons in the way that travel allows you to do. It's not the same, I know, but I'm seeing it more and more, and I'm hearing people talk about it, um, and talk about it in a way that it's like a little adventure they're going
Mm-hmm.
on, like a flavor adventure. Let's put it that way.
It's a flavor adventure. It's learning something new. It's as they're exploring and looking for recipes and seeing different sites and reading more, there's a natural immersion or also just kind of absorption of that culture. You're going to learn probably little bits and pieces maybe about the culture just as you're reading the history of recipes or how certain things are prepared or what's traditional to that culture. It's also a way to break out of the same old, same old. So if someone
Yeah.
says, oh my gosh, there's only so many ways I can prepare salmon or chicken, correct. You're going to grill it, you're going to bake it, you're going to whatever it might be. However, the sauces and what you're adding to it, what you're surrounding it with, there's endless combinations. And so I think what you're saying here with this global eating versus traveling, or it may be also in addition to traveling to some degree, but this can really add variety. So if you feel like, I think a lot of people too with COVID and all this, it feels a little bit like Groundhog Day. People feel like it's the
Yes,
same old, same old. And so this
exactly.
can just really help to kind of break that monotony from learning new things and for our taste buds. So that global eating. And then that takes us to the next that you were sharing with me. And tell me more about this, about nostalgia here.
Well, I mean, nostalgia is always popular, but but I think part of what we've missed I've been reading in a lot of different places that nostalgia is going to be big in the year to come,
Isn't
and
that funny?
nostalgic eating. I mean,
That
not
that's
necessarily.
just even like a statement. It's a very funny, like, I don't know, that there's entire discussions that nostalgia is going to be big. It's just funny. It's like something that's like like in the past is going to be really big this year. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know if that's just me.
Well, it is
What
a
I'm
little,
trying.
and it may or may not pan out,
Yeah.
but it's an interesting thought, and I think it has to do partially from everything that I've been reading, with this experience that we've had with COVID and being separated from our families
Yeah.
and not come home and not being able to, um, and so we have some longings that we haven't been able to
Yeah.
fulfill in this very difficult couple of years that we've been through. Um, and some people are saying the 1990s are going to make a return. I hope that's not what it is, but if it is, it is.
What food
But
things
it's
do you
more
think
about,
would be from the 90s that would return?
yeah, I was actually trying to figure that out, because I was thinking about it, that nothing jumps to mind like, oh my gosh, remember in the 90s, that amazing,
Snackwells. It's that kind of stuff.
I think what they're talking more about though is just the sort of, um, the simplicity of when you think of even though it's not true, things were not more simple when you were younger. They weren't. You just didn't know. Like, I mean, I grew up in the '60s. Things were not simple. So, but that idea of going back to foods that you grew up with, that you, just like we do with music, and
Yeah.
that sort of thing, and and revisiting old dishes, maybe with a twist or a flair or something that's a little bit different. Sort of the simple no fuss home cooking kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And I think that also grows out of cooking fatigue. We have cooking fatigue. I mean, m- many people are going out again to restaurants and doing that, and many are not. And it's kind of the way to sort of have get out of your ruts, but not push yourself to the point where you're going to collapse. Like, so you make something that your mom made that had, maybe it had canned mushroom soup, but instead you use
Right.
fresh mushrooms,
Right.
and you make a little cream sauce, whatever it is. But that's one of the things people are saying. I don't know. That's one of the predictions that I don't know what that grows out of. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's like mushrooms. I kind of understand because I'm seeing them everywhere. But this was one that's popped up over and over again in different lists, and it'll be interesting to see.
You
What
mentioned
happens.
cooking fatigue, and this is something that you're sort of on a personal crusade to try to remedy and to try to like help alleviate even just a little bit for people. So talk to me a little bit about cooking fatigue and what we can do about this. Like what it is, why people are experiencing it. Because I think people may not even really realize that they are. And then sort of what your ideas are for this like this final trend that if you could help to ease cooking fatigue.
Well, it's one of the things that I wish would I hope that in 2020 people find a solution for that for themselves, because what happens is you have to eat every day, and with COVID, many of us were no longer going out to eat. And you can order out, of course, but it's very expensive. And also, not necessarily healthy, not necessarily great for your budget, and so forth.
And you're not
And what I
being creative personally or kind of innovative with it.
No, and so what I hear over and over and over from readers is I can't, like, I'm going into the kitchen to cook dinner tonight, and I'm just like, I can't think of anything I want to eat, and I can't think of what to make, and I just can't face another day of cooking and cleaning. So one of the things, that helps with that is to try to think about some of the things we've talked about before, global cuisine and all that, but also, to be a little easier on yourself and not try to strive for perfection and not try to strive for a fabulous meal every night. Like, I mean, sometimes for me, not every night, but sometimes for me, dinner is a bowl of yogurt with some nuts and some granola on it. That's what it is. I'm done for the day and I can't do it. But most nights I try to have something that my husband and I can sit down together and eat and talk about our day and enjoy together. And it might be a skirt steak with gochujang on it that we sear in a skillet, which takes about, I don't know, 20 minutes.
Right.
And then I make a quick green salad. Or it might be, a sweet potato that we stuff with, whatever we have around. Might be stuffed with nuts. It might be stuffed with,
Chickpeas and your vegan cheese.
well, chickpeas is actually something I put in sweet potatoes. So it doesn't, a really beautiful stuffed sweet potato could be the answer for the night. It's just, it's
letting go of perfection.
Yeah, and just trying to think about what you like to eat, and buy the things that you like to eat, and have them on hand. I always have tortillas in the refrigerator because to me, like anything can go on a tortilla. Like whatever I have left over can go on a tortilla, and I'll almost make a taco out of it. I'm exaggerating, obviously, but
Right.
if you have leftover chicken, leftover pork, whatever,
Right.
leftover vegetables, you could put them in a tortilla and make a taco out of it. So I try to have some fun with. I love that. That's to me is a treat. And I think too often we get caught up in this idea that we have to do a certain thing, or we have to do it in a certain way. And I just want people to relax a little bit about it. And I was just going to say, try to look for people whose recipes you really like, and follow them and check in with them from time to time. There's tons of options out there. And if you follow somebody for a while and you get tired of them, then go follow somebody else and see what they're cooking.
And using that as an inspiration, kind of that jumping off point, and the different, what might be important to you nutritionally, make sure you have some of those ingredients always around, just like you were saying. So if someone says, well, I'm trying to do lower carb because I get carbs from these other sources, so if I have the option that I'm cooking a dinner, I try to do more vegetables or something. Well, there's only so much spiralized zucchini that we want to eat.
Right.
The zoodles get, on overdrive, but there's so many options. Like there's Hearts of Palm has the different pastas, and Palmini is a brand that they have so many varieties because they have like spaghetti pasta. They also have little lasagna style sheets, and it's something that's shelf stable. You just keep it in your pantry. You don't have to like refrigerate it. It doesn't go bad. And so you've got it there. And so like, for example, Brad's mom makes these incredible homemade meatballs and red sauce that's all from scratch, and he loves it. And when she makes a big batch, freezes it in smaller things. And then for just a quick dinner, he's completely fine with it with something like that Hearts of Palm pasta. So he loves his homemade pasta too. I mean, he'll make homemade pasta. He loves it. But on a normal Tuesday night, that's fine. And that still gives him that comfort food of those meatballs that they were made ahead of time and they're in the freezer, but whatever it is. And so, Ann mentioned a tortilla. And so you may say, well, it could be a whole wheat tortilla. It could be a corn tortilla, which is lower sodium. I love the brand Siete, Siete. They have almond flour tortillas. And I love the texture of them. And to me, that's just like really satisfying. So to your point, I always have those in the fridge because anything can go on a wrap. It can be breakfast, lunch, snack, you name it. It could be dessert, any of these things. And so having some of these that are kind of your go-to staples, and if there's different flavors you like, if it is the Korean flavors or the, any of the different types of like herb seasoning sauces, we keep different jarred sauces for curries in our pantry. And Trader Joe's has a really great green curry, and it's $2.99 or whatever for a jar of it, and it's straight from Thailand. And when you eat it, you're like, wow, it's like one of the best ones that we found in stores. We keep that in our pantry, and then whatever protein we have, whatever vegetables we have, even if it's left over, what do we feel like? We want something different. Okay, let's use that curry. And that's giving us flavors, and we're not making something from scratch like that on a Tuesday, but it allows us it's shelf stable. We can keep it in our pantry, and it just keeps that variety. So thinking a little bit of those things that maybe you crave, but you're not always treating yourself to, and how could you do a version that's bringing those flavors into your life?
Yeah, the pantry cooking is really important because, we can't always run to the store. As a matter of fact, most of us don't want to run to the store as often as we used to. I used to go to the store, 4 and 5 times a week. I don't anymore. I do for work sometimes,
Yeah.
but we go once a week now.
Yeah.
And sometimes we'll go 2 weeks without going because and one of the reasons we're able to do that is because of trying to keep our pantry stocked
Yeah.
with canned beans and canned seafood, and and going beyond tuna salad to take canned seafood and make something else out of it. I've made like paninis out of them, where I'm not making a salad. I'm taking that and making more of a Mediterranean kind of a mix, and make salads with it. And, same with smoked salmon and things like that, that will last in your cabinet. And it's a treat. It's a really nice treat. Smoked salmon is, in the container is delicious on top of greens with a little bit of homemade vinaigrette. It's wonderful. It tastes like a restaurant dish, but so simple, so fast, so quick, and it breaks me out of my rut. I'm not and I'm not standing there in the kitchen thinking, I already know kind of, oh, I have that salmon. Oh, I
Right.
have that. And it does take a little bit of planning. Yes, you have to think about it and you have to get into the habit of it. But if you plan out a week or so and see how it goes, you'll probably be really excited and happy that you did it. Because I can tell you, whenever I order out, and I love to order out and I love to eat in restaurants, I'm not putting down eating out. I love to eat out, but I can't do it on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
I can't. I just can't. And so I love having things like this as opposed to just clicking on that app and ordering something just because I just don't feel like thinking.
And when you think about, okay, there's a little bit of time that we have to spend planning this, but how much time are you spending scrolling through that meal delivery app? I mean, my gosh, you could get lost in that. So if you think, oh, the time to go to the store to stock up on several meals or the time to kind of plan, it's actually less. I think the biggest takeaway here when we're talking about like Ann's crusade to end or at least reduce that cooking fatigue is just relax. Like pull those pressures off of yourself. Like it doesn't have to be perfection. And like you've said, that, good enough is still really great.
Right. And there's just too much of this idea that you have to, reach for the stars. You don't have to reach for the stars.
Tell me, you were talking about the author of, I think it was Bare Minimum Dinners, and how she talked about like the pressures of trying to like create this like beautiful and fabulous and probably Instagram worthy dinner. Like just the pressure that we put on ourselves. And I think you said that, is it Jenna Hellwig?
Yes. Yeah. She is. Yeah. Her name is Jenna Hellwig, and she's author of Bare Minimum Dinners, and she was a food director at Real Simple. But she has kids and a family and all that. And she said just letting go of that ambition um, freed her up. Like she just had to let go of the idea that she had to have, um, an amazing meal, so many courses or whatever it was that she was doing, and just realizing that as long as it's tasty and you're all together and you're having a good time, um, that's what matters.
I like
You
that
know,
she referred to it as soul sucking. The
yeah, and it
pressures.
is. It can be. Absolutely can be.
Yes.
That's exactly right.
So we've got a lot of trends to look toward plant-based eating. And I'm glad that we started with that because that sort of spans many of these other topics that we've talked about. Because looking at plant-based eating as being a trend in its own, then we look at, okay, we're going to, going greener in the kitchen, the global cuisine, global eating, the cooking fatigue. How do we end cooking fatigue or reduce it? That plant-based eating, that kind of influences all of those areas. So plant-based eating, going green, mushrooms, which really plays into also this with the flavors, the cocktails, the shift in cocktails to the low or no alcohol, the global eating, the nostalgic eating, and then finally easing up, taking these pressures off of ourselves so that you can help Ann and her drive to help us all experience less cooking fatigue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we can kind of look to our own lives and figure out what do we want to have trend in our own lives in the new year. Think about what it is that you want for yourself and your goals. Ali Krieger, who writes a Nourish column for us, has a new podcast, and it's called One Real Good Thing, and she talks about just making one change in your life to help yourself have a better life. And that's what I've started thinking about for 2022. I'm not making big resolutions or anything. I'm just thinking of small steps that I can take to make my life better, to be healthier, to give back more, and so forth. So I think we can all set our own trends for 2022 for ourselves.
I think it's a great kind of leave behind with this. These are trends. These are what they say is happening, through 2022. But really, it's up to us. It's up to us to decide, where are we? What can we benefit from? And what can kind of help round us out and nourish us emotionally, spiritually, as well as how we're fueling our bodies.
Exactly. I agree with you. I hope we all do that this year to come.
Awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time, Ann. I always love our time, and I've been happy to see your face for this hour as we're chatting through this.
Happy to see you too, and I really appreciate you calling me, and it's just been great to catch up with you.
Thank you. A tremendous thank you to Ann for joining us to talk through our 2022 food trends to look forward to. As we mentioned, I'll include the links that we talked about in the show notes of this episode. And as always, let me know what you think. If you're seeing these things, trying these new trends, if there's new things that we didn't cover that you think we should have, I always want to hear about it. I am registered dietitian Molly Kimball, and you've been listening to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, the podcast. If you would like more Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, please head over to mollykimball.com, and you can follow me, Molly Kimball RD, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you haven't yet, go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join us next week for another dose of Fueled Wellness and Nutrition. Thanks for listening, and stay focused on living your strongest, healthiest life.